the silent epidemic of lead poisoning and the like. We know that our bodies are exposed to untested chemicals because in regular national surveys conducted all around the world showed that measurable quantities of 200 high production volume chemicals have been detected in the blood and urine of virtually all human beings of every age, including pregnant women. While these measured levels are generally low, they are much higher than the levels of the same chemicals that would have been found in the bodies of their ancestors of these people 1 or 2 generations earlier. Moreover, these untested chemicals are also routinely detected today in the breast milk of nursing mothers and in the umbilical cord blood of newborn infants. The absence of information about the possible hazards of chemicals in wide use is fraught with risk. Unless studies are conducted to specifically detect the harmful effects associated with chemical exposures, silent injury to humans' health can go unrecognized for years, or even decades. The risk inherent in the long-standing failure to test chemicals for safety has produced devastating results, among them the silent epidemic of childhood lead poisoning that affected children around the world throughout much of the 20th century. In the silent epidemic of childhood lead poisoning, millions of children worldwide were exposed to excessive levels of lead from the 1920s to the early 1980s. The major sources of exposure were lead added to gasoline to improve engine performance and lead-based paints. Many millions of children born in those years suffered low-level lead poisoning, which typically has no symptoms, and thus is called a silent disease. Lead had seriously caused brain injury among children worldwide, which could be diagnosed by loss of IQ points, shortening of attention span, and disruption of behavior. Children who suffered low-grade lead poisoning with brain damage were more likely than other children of their generation to be dyslexic, to drop out of school, to engage in delinquent and criminal behavior, and ultimately to be incarcerated. The story of the lead poisoning epidemic is a warning. It shows us that low-grade exposures to toxic chemicals can cause real damage to children and have real costs for our society. Our children pay a high price for our failure to require the testing of all man-made and industrial chemicals. A similar slow-motion tragedy is playing out today in the case of brominated flame retardants, which are synthetic chemicals that, since the 1970s, have been added to furniture, carpets, computers, mattresses, and even children's clothing. The usage of brominated flame retardants is increasing worldwide. The problem is that the brominated flame retardants do not remain in the consumer products to which they are added. They escape from these products, get into house dust, onto children's hands, and into food. Human exposure is widespread. Several national surveys conducted in the Western world show that virtually all individuals of all ages, including young children and pregnant women, have measurable levels of brominated flame retardants in their bodies. Brominated flame retardants concentrate to especially high levels in human breast milk. Within the past few years, high-quality studies have shown that babies exposed in their mother's womb to brominated flame retardants have lower IQs, shortened attention spans, and persistent behavioral problems. These problems persist at least until age 7 years, and they may well last lifelong. Copyright Academy House www.academy.house